Beginning with Emily slipping off her dress in the opening. We saw characters expose their bodies, their soul, their shame, and some of their pasts. It exposes the characters to each other and to Langdon, and it exposes Langdon to us. But it does not expose Langdon to the other characters. Langdon seems to be opposite of everybody else with themes. At least that's the pattern for these first 2 episodes. Hey, I'm G, and this is the G-Spot. Emily talks about leaving the outpost. And at first Timothy's like, are you crazy? No, we can't. We don't even know where the sanctuary is. And do you remember what it's like out there? But Emily's confident that they would be able to do this. And then when she talks about finding out information from Langdon, she makes the remark that they're smarter than Langdon. And I think it's pretty unlikely that she's smarter than Langdon. And so here we see Emily's weakness, perhaps because of her youth alone. We are certainly arrogant in our youth. Emily's too overconfident, and Emily is overlooking the possible threat, real threat, that could come from others who are just as capable or even more capable than her. Emily questions Venable twice throughout the episode. The first time at the dinner when she questions who is in your office, and at this point we see Timothy backing her up after Venable doesn't want to answer. And then after Timothy and Emily are busted for having intercourse, she questions Venable about making up her own rules. Once Emily brings it up, Timothy again is there to support Emily and demand that Venable answer the question. They never make progress at either point. Venable never answers any of their questions. Venable just does what she wants to do. It is when they are about to be executed that we do see that Timothy is the one who finally makes the first move and fights back to save themselves. Right after the dinner, when Emily and Timothy are talking in the hallway, that we again see how wise Emily really is. Timothy, like everybody else, is really shaken up over the snakes. And Emily's response to this is, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about Langdon and why he's here and what he's up to. Emily and Timothy can talk about what happened with those snakes for 10 days straight. But the truth of the matter is, they're never gonna find an answer. The snakes were dead and cut up and boiled. So how they came back to life is an answer that is beyond the two of them. Emily realizes that they can find answers about Michael. She knows enough to avoid thinking about impossible questions, and that she would rather focus on things that she can find answers to. Venable was exposed throughout the episode. Langdon exposed that he knows about her rule breaking. Then Langdon exposed this rule breaking to Emily and Timothy. And then Emily and Timothy bring it up in front of Meade and extended security and some Greys who are on the stairs at the time. Venable is really exposed at that point. A lot of people who didn't realize she made rules up are hearing about it for the first time. The only time we see Venable not doing exactly what Venable wants to do is in front of Langdon. Langdon really takes the wind out of Venable and really exposes her insecurities. In the beginning, when Langdon walks into the room without a word, he walks up to Venable and dismisses her from her position of authority. Then later on, when we see Langdon and Venable are going to have their meeting, she's very anxious, rearranging the furniture to make it look just right. When Michael comes in, his question to her is so exposing. And he says, you always have a knack of making ugly things look decent on the outside. This cuts right through her, and Langdon obviously sees right through her. But this is reinforced even more when Langdon tells her to expose the bruise, injury, disease that is on her back. There is something wrong with Venable's upper spine. It was definitely bruised and misshaped. Venable appears to have a strong backbone when she's dealing with most people. She is always standing very straight up, but we know that she's not who she appears to be. We know that she's pretending. So Venable's physical weakness and shame were exposed with Langdon in that meeting. And even throughout the meeting, we see that Langdon seems to be seducing her. When he first tells Venable to take off her dress, she says absolutely not. She won't even humor a thought like that. But as they get close in the end she is about to kiss Langdon, and it doesn't seem like she's minding it that much. I mean, I do get the idea that she realizes she needs to go along with this if she wants to pass and she wants to make it to the sanctuary, but she also seemed like she was almost under a trance of his. And again, we see Michael, who never exposes any of his true intentions, switches gears and tells her no, that she did not pass. Meade was exposed, and Meade was exposed as not being fully human. I guess we don't know for sure if she's completely synthetic, but those were definitely synthetic parts coming out of Meade after she was shot. This is really interesting because in the first episode, the theme was protesting, and I could not fit Meade into this theme. She kind of protested with Venable when she questioned them not following the rules of the cooperative, but rather treating the guests the way they wanted to so they could torture them. But it wasn't really a protest for Meade. I looked at this for a long time with Meade, and I could not fit her into the protesting theme. And then in this episode, we see it's because she does not fit in with the others. So again, I'm not sure if Meade is completely synthetic or not, but what we saw coming out of her definitely was. We'll have to see exactly where that goes because there could be a bunch of different explanations for it. Meade seemed to be surprised to see this herself. The closed captioning ends early and we don't get the last word she says, but it sounds like she says, "What?" Yeah, I'm pretty certain Meade was as surprised as we were. Even when Michael introduces himself, he exposes really nothing about himself. He doesn't give details about his position or authority or responsibilities. All he says is, "I represent the cooperative." My favorite part was his annoyance of being interrupted by questions. It's almost like he's annoyed that they're not accepting their position as his pets. Langdon has no interest in anybody. Langdon's single interest are his goals. He exposes what he wants to, and he hides what he wants to. And what Langdon exposes isn't necessarily the truth. And so Langdon certainly doesn't expose much of himself to the other characters. He basically leaves them with a lot of questions. We see that after Gallant's interaction with Langdon, he has a lot of questions like, "Didn't you come into my room and have sex with me in a black suit?" And we see that after Langdon interacts with Venable, she has a lot of questions like, who is Langdon and what is his relationship with Gallant? And Venable is convinced that Langdon has a relationship with Gallant because Langdon exposes Venable when he meets with her, letting her know, "I know you've been breaking all these rules." And so Venable can't figure out, well, how would he know this if he just got there? And the only thing that she can come up with is there must be a spy, somebody must be giving him information. And so to her best guess, that is Gallant. But what was exposed to us, Langdon sees everything that is going on in the outpost. When Meade comes in, gets Venable, and takes her out of the room while she was meeting with Langdon, we see Langdon can hear their conversation even though the very heavy doors have been shut and they're kind of separated by a decent amount of distance. Langdon hears the conversations like they're right in the room. When Gallant is masturbating on the bed, we see Langdon's head superimposed above him, and like he's watching him even though he's not in the room. And when Timothy and Emily go to search for information out of his room, we see that as they're approaching the room, Langdon leaves, giving them the opportunity to go in, and also his laptop just happened to be left on and unlocked. So it seems that Langdon knew they were coming for information and he wanted them to find it. My guess is he wanted them to see that Venable's rules were made up so that they would have sex and cause more trouble. Because that seems to be what really excites Langdon, is just to work these people up and use this whole apocalypse environment to play with people and their emotions. He seems to be above actual emotions. When he tells Venable the story about the mother and the two children and how the mother wanted him to shoot one of the children, there are tears rolling down his face while he's telling the story. And then he gets to the end and boom, again, he just immediately switches gears. He pops up and he's all excited about seeing who's gonna survive and go to the sanctuary. The emotions that he displays seem to always be part of an act. He doesn't seem to actually have any real ones, and he certainly doesn't seem to have any fear. This was really highlighted when Gallant said, you know, no matter what they did to me, I would have never ratted you out. And he asks Gallant, he says, rat me out for what? There's nothing you could rat Langdon out for. What wasn't necessarily exposed to us about Langdon is if he is the person in the leather suit. Don't think he is. And the reason I don't think he is because we saw flashes of Langdon on the floor with a star on the floor and the snakes around him. He seemed to be in some kind of ceremony. We actually see this while his head is superimposed above Gallant. Like this ceremony is what is enabling him to travel into Gallant's room. I think it's safe to say that Langdon is associated to who's ever in this leather suit. And I think it certainly could be that Langdon is actually in the leather suit. I almost get the feeling that it's more that he's controlling who or what is actually in the leather suit. It gets really confusing because then we see that the person in the leather suit turns into Evie. And so at that point you have to wonder, how much did he make Gallant just see in his mind? Was the man in leather ever really there? I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to share and like it if you did. I will be covering Apocalypse every week. If you want to be sure that you are aware of all the videos I upload, go ahead, subscribe, ding the bell, and you will be notified every time I upload a video. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.